you what the title of this message is today is, which you might find kind of surprising. The title of this message is "Stop Going to Church," and it's not a title as in, well, I'll tell you why I stopped going to church. This is me as a pastor telling you, stop going to church. Okay. All right. So and it's a lot out of Psalm 92 today. But really, if you can take this and apply it to your life, it could be a life changer for a lot of people out there. Something that could affect you probably, a long time down the road from now. So I like telling a lot of stories about Andy Stanley, Craig Rochelle. I listen to those guys a lot. And Craig tells a story about how he was at the lake one time with his family. And while he was there, this boat buzzes by him. And there was this father, or husband, father, the wife, and their kids all on this boat. And as they buzz by, they're yelling, "We go to your church, we go to your church." And they ended up pulling up to the dock and getting out, and they were very excited, and the kids kept saying, "We go to your church, we go to your church." And they said they exchanged some hugs and everything. And everything was good. It was a nice little engagement they had, but then the father kind of pulled Craig off to the side and said, "You know what, would you be willing to pray for me?" And, Craig says, normally when someone asks for him to pray for them, usually there's one big concern that they have. But he had many issues that he was dealing with. He said, "Could you pray for my marriage? We're struggling a little bit right now. Could you pray for me with my job? If my job might be on the line, could you pray for me financially? Because I'm really stretched pretty thin. I probably really shouldn't have bought this boat. Can you pray for my kids? They're going through some issues." And so there's just so many different things this guy had that he was dealing with. So Craig, says, "Of course, I'd be more than happy to pray for you." And he says, "Can you tell me?" Because Craig has many, many churches around the country that they have. And he says, "Can you tell me what campus you go to?" And he goes, "That way I can follow up and see what you're doing." And the guy was like, "Yeah, I can't remember what it's called." And he goes, "All right, it's not a problem. Who's your pastor?" I don't really remember his name. So Craig, the punch goes, "Well, when was the last time you went to church?" He goes, "It was back at Easter." We know a lot of those. So he said when he heard Easter, he goes, his approach kind of changed with this guy. And he actually said, "Well, maybe you should stop going to church. Because let's face it, you're not really going to church." And the reason he said that is the reason, as Christians, God's highest calling for us isn't for us to go to church, okay? That's not what it is. Our calling as Christians is to be like Christ, to be spiritually strong, to impact others with our faith, to love one another. And this word that we'll talk about here is flourish, okay? So Psalm 92, 12 through 15 says this: "The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish." See, we keep getting this word flourish that comes up. And I guess what we would say with flourish is what happens when we're planted, is hopefully we flourish, okay? "So they will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, 'The Lord is upright. He is my rock.'" So this word flourish, not something we use all the time. If you were to go to your local gym, and you were to go up to somebody working out, you probably wouldn't say, "I see you're really flourishing." You might say, hey, I notice you got some gains going on. You're getting bigger, you're getting stronger, But, if you ask somebody how they're doing, they're probably not going to say, well, I'm flourishing today, right? Not something we use every day. They may be growing spiritually. They might be strong in their faith or something along those lines, but we're probably not going to say, I'm flourishing, or Bob, you're looking good. You look like you're flourishing. This is what God meant for us, was for us to actually flourish in so many ways, for us to grow in our faith and things like that. But instead of flourishing, what happens, so many of us who even go to church, we're not flourishing, we're spiritually dry. Instead of thriving, we're emotionally withering. Instead of being connected, we're relationally barren. Instead of prospering, we're financially stressed in so many areas of our lives. And instead of maybe feeling fulfilled, a lot of us find that we're just searching for something that matters in our lives. So we're not flourishing, even though we might go to church, okay? In this section here, we talk about a couple that I just read you from Psalm 92. We talk about a couple of trees, okay? We talk about two trees. We talk about a palm tree and a cedar tree, okay? So the cedar, the reason it's talked about is because it's a durable tree. It was known to be durable. Solomon used it a lot for building the temple, for the beams and the columns and stuff like that. It was actually very attractive with pleasant aroma. So if you were going to make something, it would be nice to make it out of cedar. That way it has this pleasant smell all the time. This piece of scripture talks about palm trees too, which a palm branch we think is a symbol of triumph and victory. The Romans would, in the Olympics, would give a palm branch to those who were victorious. If we think back, Jesus entered into Jerusalem with a triumphal entry of palm branches. So there's a lot to this. So we have both these trees. Both are evergreens, both thriving. Both of them produce life year around. And we can think of these trees as they're flourishing. Okay, so our lives are like seeds, right? Our lives as a seed has potential. The potential to grow, to multiply, to thrive, to bear fruit. However, as a seed, if you're not planted, then you're unfruitful, you're dormant, unproductive, barren. So we have this difference between being planted and we have this being unplanted. And the whole point of this message today is that we don't want you to go to a church, we want you to be planted into a church. A seed can only grow if it's planted, and Jesus talks about that in Matthew 13, where he talks about a farmer, but he uses the word sower, which they all would have known for us to be a farmer. They all understood that. And he talked about seeds being, scattered on a path, but they weren't really in the good dirt. So the birds would just come and they could tear those seeds up and take them away. He talked about the ones that were shallow, that find their shadow, and eventually the sun comes along and they get killed. The roots will get them and stuff like that. And really, he's talking about how so many of us will go to a church and we'll start out well and everything, but then the worries of this world will tear us away. Okay, and then he talks about the seed that falls on good soil, and that seed multiplies because it's planted, and not just it just doesn't go to church. It's planted in the church. When we're planted, we multiply. So those who are planted in the house of God will flourish. Those who are not planted will not flourish. And going to church, not the same as being planted, right? If you're going to church, what do we say? We say, well, I'll check the weather tomorrow. You want to go to church, and we'll see if the weather looks good. We'll go if we can go. I'll go to church if I'm not very busy. I'll go to church if the game's not on. I'll go to church if I'm not tired. We might go, right? Or if you're planted, which is what I consider me and my family to be, we're planted. We don't say, are we going to go to church? It is a given we're going to church unless, we can't make it here for whatever reason, but the roads are closed, and even then I try to get here sometimes. So we never say, hey, you want to go to church? Or you think we should go to church? We are going to church because church isn't just what we do, it's part of who we are. And there's this big thought on that, which is just the fact that I don't look at my kids and say, Joey and Tabitha, you want to breathe today? Do you want to eat today? You think we should have some food today? No, it's a given. We're going to do these things, all right? God's church isn't supposed to be just part of our life. Or just a small part of our life. It's supposed to be a major part of who we are, a part of our lives and stuff like that. So we need to stop going to church. We need to get planted into a church. Some people go to church. Some people regularly will go to church, but they'll never get planted. Some people go, the Easter and the Christmas, right? And some of them will go and they will experience this powerful moment in their lives where they will feel God's presence and it'll change their lives, right? But they won't become planted, okay? And what happens is, in a few years, if they don't get themselves planted in the church, you will find that they're no longer involved in the church, except for the two major holidays. You will find that they're spiritually shaky. They may still believe in God, but they're not experiencing victory in their life, not experiencing joy, passion. They're not at peace. They don't find purpose. Their marriage might be flat. They might be financially struggling, and they're spiritually vulnerable. And then we have the group that are going to go to church, and they're going to become planted. They're going to go, they're going to experience God's presence. They're going to allow it to change their lives. And these ones that become planted into the church, if you see them a few years later, they're going to be strong. They're going to be connected. They're going to feel blessed. And they're going to understand, hey, life's not perfect. We're blessed. The relationships will be richer because of it. They will feel like they make a difference in the world. They will feel the feeling of being fulfilled. They will feel joy. They will feel purpose. They will feel like they're flourishing. Church is not a place to go. It's not a destination. It's not a building. It's the people. Okay? Your life is a seed. In order for it to grow, it must be planted. So, when you are planted, okay, a couple of things happen. When you're planted, your roots grow deep, all right? Jeremiah 17:8 says this, they are like trees planted along a riverbank with roots that reach deep into the water. Such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought, because let's face it, in this life, you're going to feel times where, man, the heat's intense. There's going to be times when things aren't going your way, and you're going to just be in this time of drought. We're going to experience it. But if you are planted, you will know that there is an end to it. And you will feel stronger because of it. If we could think of in Northern California. We have the Redwood National Park, right? And these redwoods the trees are the largest living things on Earth, okay? They can be as tall as 30-story buildings and 3 stories wide. That's pretty impressive if you would think of a tree of that size. Now the thing with these trees are the roots grow extremely deep. And they can reach out 100 to 150 feet from the trunk, okay? So that gives you an idea. There's some circumference here going on. Not only that, but the roots are intertwined with the other redwood trees. So they are literally holding each other up. Each one of those trees needs the other tree in order to survive. Okay? Same as we do. Same as Christians. We need each other in order for us to flourish, in order for us to do well. Because during the week, when you leave here, you're going to face opposition, you're going to face trials, you're going to face doubts, struggles. There are going to be a few crazy people who you're going to encounter. If you don't have any, let me know. I'll lend you a couple. We don't have to face it alone, right? Don't have to face it alone if we're connected, if we're planted. The one who wants you to think that you don't need to be planted is Satan. I mean, let's face it. He does not want you involved in the church. You know, I don't even think he minds so much if you go to church. He's fine if you go to church, but he doesn't want you planted in the church. Because if you just go to church, then you're isolated, right? You're isolated. You're vulnerable, right? So he doesn't even mind so much that. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for you to be isolated. And when we're not planted, it's so much easier for him to find us. So first thing is your roots grow deep, and the next thing is your roots produce fruit, okay? So Jeremiah 17:8, with roots that reach deep into the water, such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought. Their leaves stay green and they never stop producing fruit. Like I said, we're going to face heat. There's going to be fiery trials that we're going to have to deal with. There's going to be droughts. It just seems like nothing is happening for me. Nothing is going right in my life. And what's going to happen? If you are at these deep roots, if you're producing fruit, you're not going to be bothered by it. You're not going to be shaken by it. You're not going to be rattled by it. Because you know what? You're still producing fruit. And you're going to experience love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. You're going to be good, gentle, and faithful. And you're not just going to think about yourself all the time. The fruit, it's not just for you. But the fruit should be something, it should be a love that overflows from you. It should be joy that you spread. It should be a peace that you offer other, and it should be attractive to people. People should feel your kindness when they're around you. And your faithfulness to others, it'll strengthen the relationships you come into. So really, and this is kind of a weird thing, but if you ever have gone through something where you feel like, man, God just used me. My faithfulness was noticed by God. Man, he just used me to affect somebody. He just used me to change a life. And it's what we call Christian cocaine. It gets you hooked. You know what? And you know what? Sometimes you're going to do something, and you're going to, as a Christian, and you're going to be taken advantage of, and it goes with the game sometimes, but we just continue to do it. We continue to be fruitful, and we continue to show the love that Jesus showed us to everyone, and it becomes addicting. it's not just going to church. Maybe we should call it, maybe it's more about like loving your church. And I gotta tell you, you know what we do here is obviously not for everybody. And that's okay if what we do here, somebody comes in and this isn't what they're into, that's fine. I would hope that they can go find a church somewhere that they can be planted into. You know, because as a Christian, it's not about, well, our church is bigger than your church, and our church does this and your church does that. What it's about is that we're Christians, and we're making disciples, and we're baptizing. And that's what it's about. So if this isn't what somebody's looking for, by all means, I hope they can find what they're looking for. And if that means we have to help them find what they're looking for, then so be it. Because some people, you know, well, we don't have the adult Sunday school, you know what? And some people are like, you know, I grew up with an adult Sunday school. All right, well, good, great. Let's help you find one that you can plant yourself into, right? Some people, you know, they don't want jeans and t-shirt, and they want a longer service. They want it to be 3 hours a day. Yes, those people are out there. They want 3 hours a day. Great. Let us help you find one of those churches. Some people want pews and a robe, and they just want to be bored, okay? So, anyways, if that's what you're into, great. There's lots of those out there. We'll help you find one. But the important thing is, we need to stop going to church, and we need to get planted into a church. Because we can't go once a month. We can't go to once a month to church and expect to defeat powers of darkness, right? Satan's so much stronger than that. We can't spend more time trying to find our coffee in the morning and getting that prepped than we spend serving God. We can't spend more time on Instagram in a day than we spend serving our church. Because most of us have tried it at some point, and it didn't work. And that's what a lot of people say, you know what, I tried going to church. I tried it. It didn't work for me, right? Well, trees don't grow overnight. It takes time. And you think, what does a seed need to grow and flourish? What does a seed need to grow and flourish? A seed needs soil. It needs light. It needs water. It needs temperature. It needs time. It needs soil. You know, that's where your heart's going to be. It's got to be planted in. Light. It needs light. God's word is a lamp unto my feet. I am the light of the world. It needs water. Jesus is the living water. It needs temperature. It needs the fire of the Holy Spirit. And it needs to burn within you. It needs time. You know when the best time to plant a tree is, they say? 20 years ago. You know when the best time, next best time to plant a tree is? Today. We need to allow ourselves to be planted. And not just go to church, but invest ourselves into the church and love the church. And like I said, if this isn't your church and this isn't for you, then find a church where you can be planted into it. Stop going. Be planted. Be planted in the house of the Lord and allow yourself to flourish. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we know that we don't always do what's right, we don't always do what's good, we don't always allow ourselves to flourish the way that we should. God, we just pray that whatever it is that we find that we're lacking in our lives, that we just pray that we're wise enough to realize that you can fulfill us, that you can give us everything that our hearts desire, to allow them to be planted, to allow the church in general to be a priority in their life, not just be a small part, but to be a major part of their lives. We know, God, that the more of us who are invested into the church, the better it is that we can hold each other up, hold each other accountable, show each other love, guidance, and give each other peace and comfort in times of need. And God, we just pray that you use each of us here to fulfill whatever it is you need done on this earth, that we can be here to serve you and to be your witnesses, and we can be your disciples, and just bring your love and your grace to others in the world who are desperate